We're going to go straight to Washington, where Peter Nicholas is joining us this morning with more on these sequester cuts that are all but certain to kick in. Peter, is that right?
That's right. It doesn't look like there's any way to avoid them. The White House has scheduled a meeting. President Obama will meet with congressional leaders on Friday. That's the first face-to-face meeting that they're going to have in this standoff. But there's no sign really, or no real optimism on either side that the meeting will produce a breakthrough. Both sides are making a calculation that politically, what might be in their interest is for these cuts to kick in and take effect, and that might improve their negotiating position.
And you mentioned that they're meeting Friday for the first time face to face. I think a lot of Americans who might not have been following this closely day to day and inside and out will find that pretty shocking that the enormity of this is happening, and these two sides have not even yet sat down at a table face to face to discuss it.
I think that's right, but it's happened. The reason that they haven't met face to face, there's a reason for that, and that's because President Obama is deliberately running an outside the Beltway strategy, where he's trying to put pressure on congressional Republicans by taking his message out into the country, by trying to change public opinion, by trying to convince people that the cuts would be so devastating that they should call their elected officials, call members of Congress, and demand a solution. The president feels he's been burned in previous budget standoffs where he's tried to essentially play the inside game, negotiate directly with John Boehner and Mitch McConnell. Felt he's gotten nowhere with that strategy. So he's trying to exert pressure from the outside. We'll see if it works. Right now, the deadline is ticking down. Sequester kicks in tomorrow, and there's really no deal in sight.
And I know that they did meet yesterday at the Rosa Parks ceremony. President Obama was there with some congressional leaders. We're looking at them. They're standing there. They look like they're getting along perfectly well. Did they discuss the sequester?
Well, it actually did come up. They spent about 60 seconds talking about the sequester, we're told. And Republican congressional aides say the conversation amounted to no more than, well, we'll see you Friday. Yep, we'll be there. So the White House actually described this as a meeting of some sort, or at least some sort of get-together or discussion about the sequester, but it didn't seem like there was very much substance to it.
So what happens now with the cuts kicking in? If real pain is felt in the short term, who gets blamed for that? If it's not something that really people can see happening in the long term, then does that switch? Who might get blamed for this? I mean, what is the jockeying going on now in terms of the blame game going to be?
Well, the blame game is important, actually, to both sides. And what the president is sort of banking on is that the sequester there'll be real-world repercussions. People will be waiting hours at the airport. Children will be kicked off Head Start. Defense contractors will be furloughed. Teachers will lose their jobs. And, as the pain of that ripples through the economy, if military readiness is jeopardized, then what will happen is there'll be more pressure on Republicans to come to the table and reach a deal where they accept some tax revenue increases. That's the essence of the White House strategy. So if their pain kicks in right away, to some degree that might work in the White House's favor. If, however, that it takes us a couple months for the sequester to play out, if the pain isn't felt right away, the Republicans can argue, hey, the White House cried wolf here. They promised that there would be, they predicted there would be all this pain and all these consequences, and they haven't shown up. So that would play in the Republicans' favor. So the next few weeks will be very important in this debate and could go a long way to resolving or deciding essentially who will prevail in this, the president or congressional Republicans.
All right, Peter, thank you so much for joining us. I'm not sure prevail might be the word. It doesn't sound like anyone comes out on top on this, but we'll have to wait and see. Thanks so much for joining us from Washington this morning, and people can read much more about this on WSJ.com.